Rule 9F of the committee rules say that any testimony from your witness needs to be here 24 hours in advance. The committee, the chairman knows well that at 10:08 we received the written testimony, and then we received evidence this morning at 7:54.
Former attorney to President Donald Trump.
Mr. Chairman, I have a point of order.
You'll state your point of order.
Rule 9F of the committee rules say that any testimony from your witness needs to be here 24 hours in advance. The committee, the chairman knows well that at 10:08 we received the written testimony, and then we received evidence this morning at 7:54. Now, if this was just an oversight, Mr. Chairman, I could look beyond it. But it was an intentional effort by this witness and his advisors to once again show his disdain for this body. With that, I move that we postpone this hearing.
I want to thank the gentleman. Let me say this, that we got the testimony late last night. The committee, we did the order, and we, without objection, guided chair is authorized to declare pretty much the same time that we got it. I want to move forward with this hearing.
Mr. Chairman, with all due respect, Mr. Chairman, this is a violation of the rule, and if it was not intentional, Mr. Chairman, I would not have a problem. I'm not saying it was intentional on your part. I'm saying it's intentional on his part.
Rule 9F
because Mr. Dean, last night on a cable news network, testimony from your witness needs to be made here it all 24 hours very in evident. advance. John Dean,
The
and
committee,
I'll quote,
the chairman knows
Mr. Chairman,
well that at
he
10:08
said, as a former committee counsel in the House Judiciary Committee and then a long-term witness, sitting alone at the table is important. Quote, holding your statement as long as you can so the other side can't chew it up is important as well, close quote. And so it was advice that our witness got for this particular body. And Mr. Chairman, when you were in the minority, you wouldn't have stood for it. And I can tell you that we should not stand for it as a body.
Let me say this.
Chairman?
Let me say this.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes. Katie Hill,
I move to table.
Mr. Chairman?
is there a second?
Mr. Chairman? Mr. Chairman, I was asking to be recognized before the motion.
The vote is so in tabling the motion.
You know who had this
To
material
postpone.
before all the
Excuse
members
me,
of the committee?
Excuse me.
CNN had it before
Sir.
we did. CNN had the exhibits
Sir.
before we did.
Yeah, well, the vote is on tabling the motion to postpone. All in favor say aye. All opposed say no.
No.
The ayes have it.
And I appeal the ruling of the chair. Yes, I can assure you it's in the rules. I appeal the ruling of the chair.
Do the rules matter, Mr. Chairman?
Move to
Recognizes
table.
the gentlelady.
Move to waive the rules.
There's a motion to
Move
table.
to table.
Chairman.
The vote.
Move
She
to
made
table.
two motions. What's the motion?
The vote is on tabling.
I move to table the appeal to the ruling of the chair.
The vote is on that. All in favor say aye. All opposed say no.
No.
The ayes have it.
I ask for a recorded vote, Mr. Chairman.
Very well. The clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Cummings.
Yes.
Mr. Cummings votes yes. Ms. Maloney. Ms. Maloney votes yes. Ms. Norton. Ms. Norton votes yes. Mr. Clay. Mr. Clay votes yes. Mr. Lynch. Mr. Lynch votes yes. Mr. Cooper. Mr. Cooper votes yes. Mr. Connolly.
Aye.
Mr. Connolly votes yes. Mr. Krishnamurthy.
Aye.
Mr. Krishnamurthy votes yes. Mr. Raskin.
Aye.
Mr. Raskin votes yes. Mr. Ruda. Mr. Ruda votes yes. Ms. Hill. Ms. Hill votes yes. Ms. Wasserman Schultz. Ms. Wasserman Schultz votes yes. Mr. Sarbanes. Mr. Sarbanes votes yes. Mr. Welch. Mr. Welch votes yes. Ms. Spear. Ms. Spear votes yes. Ms. Kelly. Ms. Kelly votes yes. Mr. DeSaulnier. Mr. DeSaulnier votes yes. Ms. Lawrence. Ms. Lawrence votes yes. Ms. Plaskett. Ms. Plaskett votes yes. Mr. Khanna. Mr. Khanna votes yes. Mr. Gomez. Mr. Gomez votes yes. Ms. Acacia-Cortez. Ms. Acacia-Cortez votes yes. Ms. Presley. Ms. Presley votes yes. Ms. Tlaib. Ms. Tlaib votes yes. Mr. Jordan. Mr. Jordan votes no. Mr. Amash. Mr. Amash votes no. Mr. Gosar. Mr. Gosar votes no. Ms. Fox. Ms. Fox votes no. Mr. Massey. Mr. Massey votes no. Mr. Meadows.
No.
Mr. Meadows votes no. Mr. Heiss.
No.
Mr. Heiss votes no. Mr. Groffman.
No.
Mr. Groffman votes no. Mr. Comer.
No.
Mr. Comer votes no. Mr. Cloud. Mr. Cloud votes no. Mr. Gibbs. Mr. Gibbs votes no. Mr. Higgins. Mr. Norman. Mr. Norman votes no. Mr. Roy. Mr. Roy votes no. Ms. Miller. Ms. Miller votes no. Mr. Green. Mr. Green votes no. Mr. Armstrong. Mr. Armstrong votes no. Mr. Stubbe. Mr. Stubbe votes no. On this vote, we have 24 yeses, 17 noes.
Follow the rules. He didn't say stop the hearing, he just said postpone it so we could get his testimony and the exhibits when we were supposed to get them according to the rules of this committee. That's all we said. We didn't say we didn't want to hear from the guy. We just said we
Reclaiming my
want to follow
time.
the rules.
Reclaiming my time. I now recognize myself for 5 minutes to give an opening statement. Today, the committee will hear the testimony of Michael Cohen, President. Advisors over the last decade. On August 21st, Mr. Cohen appeared in federal court and admitted to arranging secret payoffs of hundreds of thousands of dollars on the eve of the election to silence women alleging affairs with Donald Trump. Mr. Cohen admitted to violating finance laws and other laws. He admitted to committing these felonies, quote, in coordination with and at the direction of, unquote, President Trump. And he admitted to lying about his actions to protect the president. Some will certainly ask if Mr. Cohen was lying then, why should we believe him now? This is a legitimate question. As a trial lawyer for many years, I've faced this situation over and over again, and I ask the same question. Here is how I view our role. Every one of us in this room has a duty to serve as an independent check on the executive branch. Ladies and gentlemen, we are in search of the truth. The president has made many statements of his own, and now the American people have a right to hear the other side. They can watch Mr. Cohen's testimony and make their own judgment. We received a copy of Mr. Cohen's written statement late last night. It includes not only personal eyewitness accounts of meetings with Donald Trump as president inside the Oval Office, but it also includes documents and other corroborating evidence some of Mr. Cohen's statements. For example, Mr. Cohen has provided a copy of a check sent while President Trump was in office with Donald Trump's signature on it to reimburse Mr. Cohen for the hush money payment to Stormy Daniels. This new evidence raises a, a host of troubling legal and ethical concerns about the president's actions in the White House and before. Would you all close that door, please? Thank you. This check is dated August 1st, 2017. 6 months later, in April of 2018, the president denied anything about it. In April of 2018, President Trump was flying on Air Force One when a reporter asked him the question, did you know about a $130,000 payment to Stormy Daniels? The answer was, quote, no. A month after that, the president admitted to making payments to Mr. Cohen, but claimed they were part of a, quote, a monthly retainer, unquote, for legal services. This claim fell apart in August when federal prosecutors concluded, and I quote, in truth and in fact, there was no such retainer agreement, end of quote. Today, we will also hear Mr. Cohen's account of a meeting in 2016 in Donald Trump's office during which Roger Stone said over speakerphone that he had just spoken with you after today to gather more documents and testimony in our search for the truth. I had made it abundantly clear to Mr. Cohen that if he comes here today and he does not tell him the truth, tell us the truth, I will be the first one to refer those untruthful statements to DOJ. When people say he doesn't have anything to lose, he doesn't have a lot to lose if he lies. And the American people, by the way, voted for accountability in November. And they have a right
everyone in this room to think about this. The first announced witness for the 116th Congress is the guy who is going to prison in 2 months for lying to Congress. Your chairmanship will always be identified with this hearing. And we all need to understand what this is. This is the Michael Cohen hearing presented by Lanny Davis. That's right. Lanny Davis choreographed the whole darn thing. The Clintons' best friend, loyalist, operative, Lanny Davis put this all together. You know how we know? He told our staff. He told the committee staff. He said the hearing was his idea. He selected this committee. He had to talk Michael Cohen into coming. And most importantly, he had to persuade the chairman to actually have it. He told us it took 2 months to get that job done, but here we are. He talked him into it. This might be the first time someone convicted of lying to Congress has appeared again so quickly in front of Congress. Certainly, it's the first time a convicted perjurer has been brought back to be a star witness in a hearing. And there's a reason this is the first, because no other committee would do it. Think about this. With Mr. Cohen here, this committee, we got lots of lawyers on this committee. This committee is actually a that the FBI used to go get a warrant to spy on the Trump campaign. But when that whole scheme failed and the American people said, we're going to make Donald Trump president, they said, we got to do something else. So now, Clinton loyalist, Clinton operative Lanny Davis has persuaded the chairman of the Oversight Committee to give a convicted felon a forum to tell stories and lie about the President of the United States so they can all start their impeachment process. Mr. Chairman, we are better than this. We are better than this. I yield back. Actually,
I wanted to note.
Mr. Chairman, actually, I have a motion.
Back.
I have a motion.
Gentleman is not recognized.
I have a motion under Rule 2K6 of Rule 11.
You yielded back, sir. You yielded back.
Mr. Chairman, you took 7 minutes. I took 4.
Well, the gentleman yielded back.
That's how you're going to operate? First, you don't follow the rules, and now you're going to say, so you don't get, you get to,
Point of order.
you get to,
you
you
regular
get
order.
to deviate from the rules.
Regular order.
I just have a simple motion, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
It's
I wanted
regular
to
order to
note-
have the testimony
excuse me.
24 hours in advance.
Excuse me. I wanted to note
addressed that.
under Rule 11, Clause 4, all media and photographers must be officially credentialed to record these proceedings and take photographs. I also wanted to briefly address the spectators in the hearing room today. We welcome you and we respect your right to be here. We also ask in turn for your respect as we proceed with the business of the committee today. It is the intention of the committee to proceed without any disruptions. Any disruptions of this committee will result in the United States Capitol Police restoring order and that protesters will be removed, and we are grateful for your presence here today and your cooperation. Now I want to welcome Mr. Cohen and thank him for participating in today's hearing. Mr. Cohen, if you would please rise and I will begin to swear you in. Raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony that you are about to give is the whole truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Let the record show that the witness answered in the affirmative, and thank you, and you may be seated. The microphones are sensitive, so please speak directly into them. Without objection, your written statement will be made a part of the record. And with that, Mr. Cohen, you are now recognized to give an oral presentation of your testimony. Is your mic on?
Yes. Chairman Cummings, Ranking Member Jordan, and members of the committee, thank you for inviting me here today. I have asked this committee to ensure that my family be protected from presidential threats and that the committee be sensitive to the questions pertaining to ongoing investigations. I thank you for your help and for your understanding. I am here under oath to correct the record, to answer the committee's questions truthfully, and to offer the American people information you will hear is accurate and truthful. Never in a million years did I imagine, when I accepted a job in 2007 to work for Donald Trump, that he would one day run for the presidency, to launch a campaign on a platform of hate and intolerance, and actively win. I regret the day I said yes to Mr. Trump. I regret all the help and support I gave him along the way. I am ashamed of my own failings and publicly accepted responsibility for them by pleading guilty in the Southern District of New York. I am ashamed of my weakness and my misplaced loyalty, of the things I did for Mr. Trump in an effort to protect and promote him. I am ashamed that I chose to take part in concealing Mr. Trump's illicit acts rather than listening to my own conscience. I am ashamed because I know what Mr. Trump is. I am providing the committee today with several documents, and these include a copy of a check Mr. Trump wrote from his personal bank account after he became president to reimburse me for the hush money payments I made to cover up his affair with an adult film star and to prevent damage to his campaign. Copies of financial statements from 2011, 2012, and 2013 that he gave to such institutions such as Deutsche Bank, a copy of an article with Mr. Trump's handwriting on it that reported on the auction of a portrait of himself that he arranged for the bidder ahead of time and then reimbursed the bidder from the account of his nonprofit charitable foundation, with the picture now hanging in one of his country clubs. And copies of letters I wrote at Mr. Trump's direction that threatened his high school, colleges, and the college board not to release his grades or SAT scores. I hope my appearance here today, my guilty plea, and my work with law enforcement agencies are steps along a path of redemption that will restore faith in me and help this country understand our president better. And before going further, I want to apologize to each member, to you as Congress as a whole. The last time I appeared before Congress, I came to protect Mr. Trump. Today, I am here to tell the truth about Mr. Trump. I lied to Congress when Mr. Trump stopped negotiating the Moscow Tower project in Russia. I stated that we stopped negotiating in January of 2016. That was false. Our negotiations continued for months later during the campaign. Mr. Trump did not directly tell me to lie to Congress. That's not how he operates. In conversations we had during the campaign, at the same time I was actively negotiating in Russia for him, he would look me in the eye and tell me there's no Russian business, and then go on to lie to the American people by saying the same thing. In his way, he was telling me to lie. There were at least a half a dozen times between the Iowa caucus in January of 2016 and the end of June when he would ask me, "How's it going in Russia?" referring to the Moscow Tower project. You need to know that Mr. Trump's personal lawyers reviewed and edited my statement to Congress about the timing of the Moscow Tower negotiations before I gave it. So to be clear, Mr. Trump knew of and directed the Trump-Moscow negotiations throughout the campaign and lied about it. He lied about it because he never expected to win. He also lied about it because he stood to make hundreds of millions of dollars on the Moscow real estate project. And so I lied about it too, because Mr. Trump had made clear to me through his personal statements to me that we both knew to be false, and through his lies to the country that he wanted me to lie. And he made it clear to me because his personal attorneys reviewed my statement before I gave it to Congress. Over the past 2 years, I have been smeared as a rat by the President of the United States. The truth is much different. And let me take a brief moment to introduce myself. My name is Michael Dean Cohen, and I am a blessed husband of 24 years and a father to an incredible daughter and son. When I married my wife,